And, you know, my wife, Loretta, who stood by me through thick and thin, I said to her one day, just recently, I said, when you look back and go back a few years and remember all those defeats before I finally won an election, in your wildest dreams, did you ever think I'd become the #2 man in the United States Senate? And she said, Dick, in all honesty, you're not in my wildest dreams. After 40 years of marriage, she's entitled to change the channel once in a while. I can live with that. I know you're pretty close with 39 years, Tom and Diana. But so Tom was very kind to me in that introduction, and I want to acknowledge several of the people who made this such a great convention and make the Democratic Party of Maine such a great party. John Baldacci, the best busboy Mama Baldacci ever had, and her restaurant. Congressman Mike Michaud, I know he's done a great job here in Maine and a terrific job in Washington. Your House Speaker, Glenn Cummings, and Senate President Beth Edmonds, thank you for sticking with it. You're terrific. I know John Knudsen was here earlier, and I trust he's still in the audience as chair of the Maine Democratic Party. And to all of you party faithful, at 9:30 p.m. on a Saturday night, I stand before you realizing I'm the last thing between you and a lobster roll in a cold shipyard. In a sense, I'm kind of coming back to my political roots tonight. In a way, I was inspired to public life by a man who was raised in some of the rough woods of Maine. He graduated from Bowdoin College. He grew up in an area I've asked a lot of people about, and not many people have ever heard of, called Ottawa. I asked about that earlier. They said, well, it's near Greenville, for those who are wondering where it might be located. But his name was Paul Douglas, and he was a United States Senator from Illinois. And many years ago, in probably the only serious mistake he made in public life, he hired me as a college intern. And I worked in his office as a college student, and that's what I needed to see. Those hours spent by his side in that office doing what interns do convinced me that public life was something I wanted to get involved in. It was a long road from that decision to where I am today, and it was a long road from being an intern to Senator Paul Douglas to succeeding him in the United States Senate and holding his Senate seat. He took great pride in his origins here in the state of Maine, and he was a great man who inspired me and so many others to get involved in public life. My home is Springfield, Illinois. Before the people of my state asked me to serve in the United States Senate, I served for 14 years in the House of Representatives with Tom part of that time. I held the same seat as the first Illinoisan ever elected president of the United States. I am hoping to see a second Illinoisan elected president. The seat I held in Congress was once occupied by Abraham Lincoln. He was a congressman there for 2 years, and really, he was a leader of our country, obviously, when he came to the presidency, I think our greatest, in bringing our country together. If you love Lincoln as I do, and if you understand how important he was to this American dream and this American nation, you have a special place in your heart for Maine as well. This is the state that gave America Joshua Chamberlain, the Lion of Little Round. I read the book Killer Angels, a wonderful book, and started reading even more afterwards. And you couldn't help but be inspired by what Joshua Chamberlain did. How this man, this modest man who had been a professor at Bowdoin, who really was discouraged from going into service but insisted on it. They didn't want him to enlist, but he said he was going to anyway. He served with the 20th Maine at the Battle of Antietam, the Battle of Fredericksburg, 20 different battles, cited for bravery 4 times, had 6 horses shot out from under him, was wounded 6 times, and he was given the honor of commanding the Union troops when General Lee surrendered at Appomattox. Now, instead of taunting the defeated Confederate soldiers as they marched down the road, General Chamberlain ordered his men to come to attention and carry arms as a sign of respect to the defeated Confederate troops. A Confederate general, moved by that unexpected gesture of goodwill, ordered his soldiers to do the same. It was perhaps the first act of healing following a war that had nearly destroyed our nation. After the war, he was elected your governor 4 times, had a distinguished career as president of Bowdoin College. He died at the age of 85 from complications from an old war wound. He was the last Civil War general to die from wounds suffered in that terrible war. In his long and remarkable life, people remember that day in Gettysburg. Running low on ammunition, with many casualties and against all odds, Joshua Chamberlain and the men of the 20th Maine held Little Round Top. Against wave after wave of Confederate soldiers, they held the high ground in the battle. It was a crucial victory in a critical battle that turned the tide of war and eventually enabled a president from Illinois to become leader of a reunited America. Now, another leader from Illinois needs the men and women of Maine to help him win a battle so that together we can unite our nation again, restore the hope and opportunity that America truly deserves. This has been an historic year. Our party has been blessed with so many talented presidential contenders, many of them my colleagues in the Senate. I could go through and list each and every one of them, the contributions they've made to the greatness of our party and the greatness of our nation. But I want to pay special respect to my colleague from the state of New York, Senator Hillary Clinton. And I have a special friendship and kinship, as many of us do, to the Clinton family. I was 2 years ahead of Bill Clinton in college at Georgetown. Now, I was a senior and he was a sophomore, and seniors don't think sophomores will ever amount to anything. So I didn't pay much attention to him, but I knew who he was. And of course, worked with him during his campaign. And was honored to serve in the House of Representatives during the Clinton administration when America achieved really great things for the working families and for our nation. I think if you look at the numbers, you'll see that I supported President Clinton as much, if not more, than any member of Congress. Came to know him personally, and of course came to know the First Lady. Then the day came when she was persuaded to run from the state of New York to be a United States Senator, and for more than 10 years she's been my colleague. She's an extraordinary person, but I really didn't know how extraordinary until this campaign. I will just tell you that I stand in awe of her tenacity, her determination, and her skill in this race for President of the United States. We all should thank her in appreciation for what you've done. As Tom told you, I'm the Senate whip. What that means is when Harry Reid has to round up the votes, I have to bring him in. We have 51 Democrats and 49 Republicans. There's not much room to spare. And so when there's a big vote, I've got to call out to, as we call them, the presidentials. Hillary and Barack, bring them home. And I can't tell you what we've asked him to do. I can remember a critical vote. It was a life or death vote for us. And we had to call both of them and call them back from Nevada. They took a red-eye flight back from Nevada, walked in from the airport and voted. And I went up to Hillary and I said, I hope you get a chance to rest. She said, I have to get back on the plane and fly to Nevada. That is typical of the schedule that these candidates have kept. And she has done it, I think, with grace and with the kind of strength that really brings admiration, even from those of us who may differ with her in terms of an issue here or in terms of who ultimately should be the nominee. But I say in these words of respect and admiration that soon the primaries and caucuses will come to an end. As of Tuesday, all of the states and territories will have voted. And at that point, it is time for us to start to unite as a party, to start to come together.